Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Progress Report. I am your host, Dion Sage. Tonight, unfortunately, I will not be hosting the Progress Report. Instead, my good friend Taylor Neptune, host of Tea with Taylor and fellow creative, as well as fellow Icon 2022, will be hosting tonight alongside Bret Jacob, and they will be interviewing a fabulous person in Adrian Tam. I deeply apologize that I cannot be there tonight. You know I love sitting down talking with you guys about the things in our state, in our city, and in our country, as well as around the world. Unfortunately, every other Tuesday now, I'll be taking a class, a much needed class, and a class that is required for me to move into my future. So, I love all of you, and I know you love me. So it is with love that I ask you guys to forgive me for not being here every other Tuesday. However, we do have people that will be sitting in my stead. I thank you all for your patience. I really, really do. And I thank you guys for committing yourselves to watching the Progress Report with Dion Sage every single Tuesday. You have been a part of this project just as anybody else. So with that said, I did want to talk about something really quickly before I move on and go to class. Well, what I wanted to talk about was everybody's talking about this pastor, Pastor Michael Todd, who was doing a demonstration on Sunday morning where he spit in his hand, and not just spit, I'm talking about he said, spit in his hand, took the spit and rubbed it in this man's face. Now listen, y'all know I'm a Christian. I read the scripture, and to all the Christians saying, "Well, Jesus spat into the mud and made the blind man see." Oh, okay. If he was making this man see, that's one thing. He was doing a demonstration. And here's my thing. You know what I mean? I've seen plenty of demonstrations in my many years at church, but in the middle of COVID, in the middle of the Omicron variant and Delta variant and whatever next variant's coming in, middle of the pandemic, I don't think anybody should be hawking up a lung and trying to rub it and smear it on anyone's face. But we can't just fault the pastor for that as well. We also have to sit down and talk about the man who decided to stand there and allow for the pastor to do it. Let me tell you something. That's got to be trusting your pastor for you to stand there and say, "I'm going to let you put this loogie all over my face." Ugh. But on the other hand, let's be real. For many of you that are out there outraged and alarmed, let's not pretend that when you're in your own pretend time and your own alone time that you don't sit there and enjoy an occasional spit in the mouth from your partner. That's not nasty, right? What this was a simple demonstration trying to show what happens when things happen to you, when nasty things happen to you, and how people respond. Don't get me wrong. I like Mike Todd. I like Pastor Mike Todd. I actually read one of his books, Crazy Faith. It's a good read. I also followed his relationship goals. But Pastor Todd, I'm a little out on the spit and the saliva and stuff in the middle of a pandemic. You just can't be doing that, bro. Can't be doing that, man of God. You can't be doing that. With that said, there is a wonderful show ahead for each and every one of you. Like I said, I will not be hosting tonight. My good friend Taylor Neptune, host of Tea with Taylor, and fellow creative as well as fellow icons calendar, fellow icon in Rhode Island 2022, will be hosting tonight alongside our good friend Bret Jacob. We love Bret. Adrian Tam, listen, I love the work that Adrian Tam's doing. He is a state representative from Hawaii. He's the only openly gay state representative from Hawaii. We had him twice last year on the show. We had a one-on-one interview last year with him on the show, and then we had him for the panel. You may remember him. He's the one who told Senator Ted Cruz to fuck off. I wonder what choice words he has for the Republican Party since then. With all that said, Taylor, take it away.
Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome. I know Dion already did that, welcomed you all here, but we got a jam-packed show today. I'm excited to be hosting for you all, and Dion definitely owes me a favor for this one, for sure. So I'm just going to bring in the panel that we have today, and we're going to get right into it. We have my good friend, and Mr. Gay Rhode Island, Bret Jacob joining us, and representative from Hawaii, Adrian Tam. Hello, everyone. Hello, guys. How are you guys?
Hello, thank you, Taylor. Thanks for having us.
Of course, yeah. I'm really excited about this. I got two people here who I know have a lot to say, and I'm excited to hear what you all have to say about say in respect to everything. It's been about a year since we've had Representative Tam on, so I'm going to give you the floor first. How's everything been in your direction out in Hawaii?
Things have been going very well here. I think that we have done a lot in terms of advocating for the needs of the people of Hawaii, not just the LGBTQ plus community here. In my first year, I was able to pass two important bills, one on real estate investment trust, another one on homeless youth. I've also passed a resolution to crack down on illegal robocalls, which is something that's targeting many of our seniors.
Oh, yeah.
And recently, I established a new legislative caucus here to advocate for the needs of the LGBTQ plus community.
Nice. Well, that's important. As a representative, as a congressperson, or anyone with a platform, it's important to pan to, the LGBTQ community as well as everyone else, because we fall into that category a lot, and we think, let's just look out for this group of people. But that's also the way of old politics. That let's just look out for the people that we represent. So it's nice. It's refreshing to hear, that you're panning out to the entire group of people that elected you, essentially. Bret and I in Rhode Island here, we've been dealing with the surge of Omicron, the Omarion variant, as we called it. So we've been dealing with that, and it's been insane just watching people, the scarcity of tests and the at-home technology being used a lot. My question to you, Representative Tam, is how has that been affecting Hawaii?
It has really affected a lot of us. We already have a doctor shortage here, and a healthcare worker shortage here. We actually had to bring in several healthcare workers from other states to help us with the caseloads, even though hospitals are still at a level that is manageable. The problem comes when our healthcare workers are getting um, COVID as well. So they're unable to work, and that leads
Right.
to a staffing shortage
Right.
in our healthcare space. I'm hoping that we can soon have boosters listed as an individual who's fully vaccinated under the new definition. Um, our community continues to push out the information needed to get people vaccinated, whether it's your first time or whether you need to get boosted. And our state is the only one with a safe travels program where you can bypass the 5-day quarantine if you are fully vaccinated. And I'm hoping that we could amend that to include boosters as well.
Hmm. Well, that would be amazing. I unfortunately had to miss out 10 days of work when I contracted a COVID-19 because of a policy. So, not thinking of anything else, and not even thinking of the CDC lowering it to 5 days, nothing along those lines. It was just we had to go along with policy. So another thing that I believe that Representative Adrian Tan, for all of the viewers, has to leave us a little early today. But another thing that I really want to point out between the two people that we have here today, you're both openly queer individuals in legislature, and that makes me smile. How has Bret actually? In your introduction, I said Mr. Gay Rhode Island. Are you still Mr. Gay Rhode Island? How is that? How does that look? Because COVID interrupted that as well. I think you might be muted.
Of course. 2 years haven't figured this out, but thank you, Taylor, for the introduction. And yes, I am still technically the reigning Mr. Gay Rhode Island, though I have hung my crown up and am no longer on official duty. It is really quite sad, frankly, that we haven't been able to have a pageant yet, because when I think about the title holder positions, these are positions in which folks are granted 1 year. You have the spotlight of everyone in Rhode Island. To our conversation earlier about representing queer people versus non-queer people, well, suddenly you have all queer people, or excuse me, all non-queer people looking at you, and looking to you for how, quite frankly, they should perceive our community, and also
The entire community.
what they what they should know about our community. And there are key moments throughout the year in which you also have the ear of high-ranking elected officials like the governor and the mayor of Providence and mayors of other cities. And I just think about the awesome responsibility and the moment that we have to advocate for our community, whether it's workplace rights and equality, which is what I focused on, whether it's focusing on accessibility of PrEP, like some of our previous Mr. Gay Rhode Islands have done, or accessibility of mental health resources, or strong allyship and advocacy for the trans community. I think that they're really powerful and important positions for
Absolutely.
for our own advocacy, and for people to learn how to think about us and how to talk to us. So
Absolutely.
I'm
And it's an
hopeful.
honor.
Yeah.
It's an honor to have a title that like Mr. Gay Rhode Island. And I'm sure from what I'm hearing, if to sum it up, I actually was being mentored by you for running for Mr. Gay, actually for the year before COVID happened, and that's how I met you. So that it's really a little bit nostalgic for me as well. But what I'm hearing just off your experience is that it can be a lot of pressure, and I want to hear from Representative Tam about that. Have you felt that pressure working with your community as an openly queer person?
There's definitely some pressure. when it comes to representing any kind of community, because you're now put in the spotlight and you're, required to act a certain way, but be authentic and true to yourself as well. My main pressure comes mostly as a young person who is part of the community, because many people think that I'm going to walk into this building with a Starbucks in hand making TikToks and not do any of the work, because there's that perception that millennials are very lazy. At the same time, to add on to that, I'm queer and LGBT, so many people don't want to take me seriously, and that kind of puts a lot of pressure on me to work harder to kind of end that kind of stereotype, not just for myself, but for anyone else that comes down the line that wants to become an elected official or to take up some leadership role in their community. That's why I'm here until 9 o'clock at night sometimes, drafting bills, reading bills. That's why when I got my vice chairmanship, I took it very seriously in the House.
Absolutely.
And that's how I was able to get vaccine clinics for my district. I was able to get $6 million in capital improvement projects for my district, pass 2 bills, resolution, etc. And I'm hoping that really was able to change the tide on these stereotypes and it will I'm hoping that it will add pressure on the next person that comes along.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say, it's great to hear. It's like I said earlier, it's been almost a year since you've been on the show. It's great to hear how your work has progressed in the position that you're in. So thank you for sharing that with us. But before you leave, also, I want to get your opinion on this, and you as well, Bret. Before you leave, again, another thing that has happened over almost a year and a few months now, I want to say, is the insurrection at the Capitol. And I really want to hear what you have to say about that. What do you think the end result is going to be here? Because there's still being a former social media advocate, Trump, is still being protected by certain people in that party, and it drives me a little crazy. So, what do you guys feel the end result is going to be here?
Well, I'm hoping that the end result for this investigative committee, the January 6th committee in Congress, is that it really changes minds of people who are invested in Trump, even though that seems unlikely, and that we are able to hold people accountable. But like everything in the world, life is not fair. It's not just up to the members of the community, but regular folks like you and me to really talk to our friends and to talk to our peers to tell them why this committee is important and why Congress needs to investigate it so something like this would never happen again. Because look what we're up against. We're up against One American News and Fox News, and they do a really good job in scaring people into thinking that this committee is just out to, take away their rights or whatever.
Oh, yes.
And that really puts, like you said, pressure on people like us to try to change the narrative. And I think that we can do that by having these tough conversations in private circles to change people's minds. And it's unfair that we have to do it, but it is something that is going to be worth it in the end.
Yeah. What do you think, Bret?
Yeah, I mean, I want to echo everything that the rep said, particularly that it can feel like there are so many forces working against the truth in this situation. Ted Cruz had to apologize for calling this domestic terrorism. Fox News and all these like social media algorithms are sort of feeding people ever increasingly extreme information that makes it harder when we do have those conversations to bring them back to the reality of what happened. And, I don't know that there's a real end result necessarily for this committee or commission. I mean, I would love to see folks held accountable. I think that what I'm really looking for is, strengthening the foundation of our democracy that allows us to vote out people that are so divorced from reality and put in people who are real champions. So that means like really rallying behind the Voting Rights Act, although its prospects are grim. You know, advancing progressive voter ID laws. You know, relaxing restrictions here at the state level, and hopefully at the federal level. That's what I would like to see. I'd like to see nonpartisan commissions responsible for redistricting, you know, local and federal districts, so that it's not a partisan process and it levels the playing field. I mean, I think things like that are also would have contributed to this.
It makes me laugh a little, Bret, to think that we are still asking for these things, which for me kind of seem like bare minimum or seem very like, I don't know, like common sense. But as my parents used to say, common sense is not so common. As far as the insurrection, though, I really hope to see justice served again. Like you all, that's the generalized theme I'm getting from the both of you. That we hope to see that people are held accountable. I really don't understand how the committee is still being so obstructed in so many different ways, and it surprises me, but also doesn't in a scary way, because former President Trump based his entire presidency on, making people believe otherwise, essentially. That's what he did. That's what he does, and is continuing to do. And so I'm not extremely surprised that that's the way he's going about this entire thing, and that the Republican Party is still somewhat protecting. But that's just my thought. and I know Representative Adrian Tam has to go, so I'm going to move forward to your final thoughts, and I'll let you go, Adrian Tam. So what are your final thoughts for today? Anything you want to share with us?
Thank you so much for having me, and it's good to meet all of you. I'm always appreciative of all the work that you do. I apologize that I need to cut my time with all of you short, but my final thoughts are this, to anyone watching, you don't have to run for office to get involved or to, make change. When I first started in politics, I was just a staffer, and I worked my way up to become an office manager for a legislator, and then made the jump to become a legislator. But during my time there, I was able to draft several bills and turn them into lawsuit under my senator. So I drafted, a Section 8 bill. I worked on youth commission laws. I worked on our marijuana laws. So, to anyone out there who has an interest in public service, know that, there's a place for you. You don't have to run for office, but you can affect change just by working for someone you believe in, or campaigning on a cause that you care deeply about.
Thank you so much for that. I love that. That's one of the reasons I admire what Dion Sage has done as well, as far as, working on so many different campaigns and all the political gains that he has under his belt. And I thank you so much for being a part of this and for leaving us with that. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and have a good one, and aloha.
Thank you. Aloha. We're going to go to commercial. We'll be right back, guys. Hey, okay, so we're back. I promised you we'd be back, and we're back. We're back here with the progress report, without Dion Sage. I couldn't wait for Representative Tam to go, not because I didn't enjoy his company, but so I could talk junk about Dion Sage. No, I'm just kidding. But I could. It's great. He's one of my best friends, and it's so much fun to get a rise out of him to talk junk about him. But Brett, we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, we
we
do.
have a few things to cover. First and foremost, let's get this out of the way because I've been talking about it. I was talking about it on Tea with Taylor. I've seen a new Google thing pop up. I've seen a lot of friends posting about it because everyone in my age group is slightly distraught, if not more distraught than slightly, about Miss Betty White passing. How have you dealt with that? I know, right?
Oh, oh, Betty.
I
You know,
know.
I like we all knew this was coming,
We
right?
did.
She
She
lived
was
a
quite old.
really good long life, and yet like it hit so hard. And
It,
you know, I only knew Betty White from the Golden Girls, right? I'm not familiar with some of, Hot in Cleveland and some of the other shows that she had done before Golden Girls. But I
yeah.
feel like it hit so hard, one, because she's just a doll, right? She's just funny and incredible. But
She
also
never
like
lost her wits or anything.
no, she was always quick, quick to respond. But like her, like Betty White and everyone else on the Golden Girls, I feel like really for the time like challenged what people's expectations of like women of their age, should be like really really challenged us all to think hard about what we're expecting, from women of that age, and like,
Yeah.
presented a new and very positive image.
Oh
And
yeah.
in some ways that's like, I feel like as a queer person, like I can sometimes identify that with on a daily basis, where like we're constantly walking through the world sort of challenging the stereotypes and the way that people perceive us if they haven't met us, just based
You
on
hit the nail on the
whatever.
head. I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's like
That's one of the
it's
reasons
like
why so many different
I
people and
love
so
her.
many different demographics can relate to that show in general, to Golden Girls, because it like we know, like we've all done before, which Golden Girl character are you? There's something in there for everyone, and it presents that rebellious, almost like, I don't know, the notating factor that of the millennial, I'd say, is our need to stand out and our need to represent ourselves in a way that we want to represent ourselves, which is not wrong. And Golden Girls is one of those shows that just highlights that, not the norm. And everything else that Betty White has been in, I also like to call her the one-liner queen, because it was just always on it. Always. Like, she didn't have to say much, but she would come in with those one-liners, those zingers, and boom, you knew like that was Betty White. And so, between her and Sidney Poitier passing away, it's just those were two really really big names for me, and I was distraught. Like you said, we all knew it was happening, but I was distraught. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And I heard that they're playing some of her spin-offs. I think on yeah.
Okay.
Don't quote me on this, y'all, but maybe
Okay.
by the time Friday, by the time Friday comes around, I'll have an article to quote. But I did see something about a spinoff of something that she's done being posted to a streaming service. So the more to come, it's gonna be kind of like the Michael Jackson thing, where more music came out as he passed away, and it's
Whitney
yeah,
Houston. Yeah.
yeah, the Whitney Houston effect, as we're calling it.
Yeah.
But moving forward just a little bit more, just so people get to know Brett Jacob a little bit more. You did also, like we got into a little bit with Representative Tam. You also ran for state senate in a special election.
Yeah.
So how was that process? Let the viewers know how was that?
It's been a couple months since election night, and I didn't win, obviously, but I don't feel like
Unfortunately.
a loser. I don't feel like a loser at all. And part of the reason for that is, first of all, it was just like a huge honor for so many people to like believe in me, right? I didn't hold back how I articulated my vision for Rhode Island, and a whole range of topics that people are in this district in particular are constantly in the know about. I authentically represented myself, authentically represented my positions. People believed in that. I feel very proud of that. I also feel like just a deeper connection to my community and the people in it, and sort of the there's a lot of great people working on, just doing work like Representative Tam. You don't have to be an elected official. There's folks that are writing policy related to, environmental reform. There's folks that are doing really great volunteer work at Hope High School and other schools throughout the city. There's people who are, doing really great just general neighborhood organizing, newsletters and things like that to keep their neighbors who may not have the time to keep up with things, just keeping them informed. I mean, there's just so much great activity that happens in this district, and it was a true honor to again run as authentically as myself, and for people to resonate with that and believe in the vision.
And I think you did leave you did resonate with voters, if you ask me, and I think you really made yourself known, especially for someone who just jumped in the race as a newcomer, so to speak, comparing to the other folks that were running. You really made your name known, and I commend you on that. So I'm glad to hear that overall it was a positive experience for you.
It was.
I was surprised that you didn't win. Not alone. You know what? Let me not just say that I'm surprised that you didn't win, but I'm surprised at who did win. And I'm going to leave that there. That's some hot tea that I am not going to spill it on the progress report today. But I am, yeah.
Well, what I can tell you, can I tell you a story?
Tell me a story.
Well, it's not a very good story, but it was on election night. One thing that I learned I didn't know is that there are like poll watchers, or or people that are at the polls that get locked in. They literally get physically locked in, and they're generally representing the different campaigns, and they hear the results live of the different precincts. And there are like a few precincts in our district where there are polling stations and results are being displayed from. So the first two precincts were reported, and it was like a live text, right? We text to find out, really, like even before the Board of Elections. And I found out this is how news outlets and things get to know results before they're officially reported. But so the first two precincts that were reported were the ones that I won very handily. So there was this very interesting emotional roller coaster. I was trying not to listen. So I was pacing around my house, and my friends were in the living room, and I looked at one of my friends, and just to get a sense, I didn't want them to tell me anything, but just get a sense of how it was going. And they looked at me and they winked like that. And I was like, oh my God. And then I come back in the living room when the other precincts are reported. And it was such an incredible experience to be around people I love and care about. And
I'm sure your stomach was doing flips. Jeez,
it was.
What you're saying is they stole the election. You should have won. That's what you're saying.
No, fair.
Sorry, my impression, my Trump impression is not as good as Dion. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, something that came across our topics of interest here, something that I really want to hear from you as well, is this bill that is going through Arizona State. And I know you've read a little bit about it, but for the viewers, this bill, Senate Bill 1045, is criminalizing certain healthcare options for our transgender folks and gender affirming surgeries, and it seems a little bit like a step backwards if you ask me. It is referring to people under the age of 18, if I'm correct, saying that they are even classifying it as a felony to administer testosterone or estrogen to someone under the age of 18. And this is in the Arizona Senate right now. Um, yeah, and you talked a little bit, Bret, about standing firm on what your beliefs is, whatever that may be, whether it be environmental injustice and things like that. How do you stand? How do you stand on this? How do you feel about
Um, I'll first say that I'm, from personal experience, perhaps not the most qualified to speak on this, but I can tell you just from like a human experience, it really breaks my heart to hear this, because we know how transformative for gender diverse people who choose to have medical care associated with their gender identity. We know how transformative that can be
that?
for their mental health and self-image, and that's just so important, right? It's so important to feel good in the body that you're in. And I find this bill deeply troubling because it also ignores. I'm almost certain that Arizona is a state that hasn't banned conversion therapy on minors. So it seems like it's unfairly targeting a very narrow and like specific group of people,
Right.
and sort of calling it and saying that it's safe when in fact not providing these services is harmful. Then you allow conversion therapy, which is harmful.
Right.
And then we just also want to bring up the fact that it is common practice in this country for babies who display intersex characteristics to for doctors to just give the surgery, right? To just give the surgery. They either don't fully explain, and I want to emphasize medically unnecessary surgery. They don't take the time to explain to parents that this is medically unnecessary. Oftentimes it's purely for quote unquote aesthetics, and they don't give the child time to develop their own gender identity and develop a chance for reasonable consent. So they say that this is to ban harmful medical practice in their eyes, but there are already harmful medical practices that are happening in Arizona and elsewhere in this country.
And not even just banning that, they're going the extra to criminalize healthcare options for this small marginalized community. Well, I can't say small anymore, but they're attacking and criminalizing this marginalized community in such a direct way when this community already has limited healthcare options. So that's the thing that really stuck in my craw, as so to speak, that like you went the extra step to criminalize a healthcare option. That's insane. That's absolutely insane.
It is.
So how do we begin to even prevent that from happening in our own state or in other states?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And so there's a couple of things. One, there's an organization called Interact that has been pushing legislation at federal and local levels to ban these medically unnecessary surgeries. For babies. I think that's a really good start to push for federal legislation. Here in Rhode Island, we can do it. But even as close as I think Boston Medical Center has generally advised that they're not going to be performing these surgeries on infants. But I think also it's just strengthening. We have Senator Tiara Mack, who has an incredible bill that she's sponsoring as well. I think last year, Rep. Kislak sponsored this bill in the House that would make sure that gender identity and sexual orientation are parts of holistic and inclusive healthcare, health education in our schools across the state. I think that's a really fantastic place to start to really make sure that we have robust and inclusive health education for our kids, and then just strengthening medical supports for gender diverse people here at the state and local level.
Yeah, and you talked earlier about your bond growing with your community and with your state representatives through your run for office as well, and so I think that's really key too to make sure that we have those key figures in our community that are building those bonds and connections so that we can go to those people and say, I need to be heard, and they can create those avenues for people to be heard. And with that, I think it's a time for us to go to another commercial. And we're going to be right back with some more very fun and interesting conversation. Me and Bret here, Mr. Bretley, as I like to say. So I will be right back, and you guys see you then.
Kikipedia, your online guide to LGBTQ plus bars, clubs, and events. Find all the tea on your local gay bars. Home of the internet's most comprehensive digital drag show and virtual event guide. Visit kikipedia.app or dragstreams.com now!
Hello. Okay, we're back. We're back. I hope you guys enjoyed those commercials. Bret, how you doing over there?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I'm sweating a little bit. I haven't been, publicly speaking in a long time, so.
Oh, good. Did that make you nervous?
Yeah, you make me nervous. You're a great host.
Oh, yes. Winning. Then I'm doing something right. You guys heard it here first. Taylor Neptune did something right. No, unfortunately, I'm in the opposite boat. You may not be able to tell right now, but I had some plumbing done today in my apartment, and I had a hole ripped in the wall. So actually, right behind this lovely scenery that you're seeing is a hole in the actual wall of my apartment, and it is quite drafty tonight. I don't know wherever you all are watching from, but in Rhode Island, it is quite windy. So my bottom half is freezing. So there's that, but so be it. The show must go on. I just figured I'd share that with you because it is quite the battle right now. What are we gonna do? At least we have plumbing. But another thing that I wanted to pick your brain about, there was we kind of talked about this a little bit. But there was an incident that could be seen as somewhat erasing trans and non-binary community. Wow. From our literature. This Pembridge School District in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, recently announced it's going to remove all books on gender identity. The assistant superintendent of elementary education emailed the principals and librarians instructing them to remove content regarding gender identity, end quote. Again, something that I feel is very important to our growth as a community, as a people, as representatives, just growth in general. I feel that we can educate the ignorance away is something I like to say. And I don't understand where they're coming from, for one, with this need to remove content regarding gender identity. And so how do you feel about that before I go on?
Well, I hadn't heard of this. I'm a little confused because I'm also confused. I'm not really sure what they're talking about. Like, do they mean, because if they're talking about gender identity, are they talking about they don't want any literature that's referencing like men or women or like transgender men or transgender women or non-binary folk, like when they say gender identity, what are they talking about? Because gender identity is a full spectrum of people. It's like,
right. I
it's
took
like
it
how you
as
perceive yourself. So I'm not really sure what they mean by that. But if I were to take a guess and say that they were talking specifically about anything that references gender diverse people, like outside the gender binary, then yeah, I mean, similarly, my heart really hurts. And man, these, like, it just emphasizes the importance of every single level of government and representation and activism, right? Like you can, it's so important to be really active in your school, in your school committee, right? It's just as important to be active in your city council race, in a mayoral race, in a state legislator race, in a federal race. Like we have got to be full court press in every single level of public life, because people can do really harmful things like this, like anywhere, right? And sometimes insidiously, like they just fly under the radar with very minimal opposition. And it's just important for anyone who feel like they want to make a difference. You can do it at any level, and we should.
I really don't understand the thought process. For a lot of times when these things happen, I try to, in order to become less angry and in order to deal with it, I try to find their thought process, and I try to figure out what they are trying to do as opposed to what they're doing. And with this one, when I read it, I just don't understand where they're going, what the goal was with that. And it seems like a very bold and bigoted move for an entire school district to say anything, like you said, such a broad spectrum of what are they even attacking here? Are you attacking anything that's not the gender norm? Because that's what it sounds like. And they're saying anything with gender identity is being removed. And these publications have been created to educate. So what we're doing is essentially taking a step back and allowing ignorance to perpetrate through our school system, which, if you ask me, it's way too much of that already. I just don't understand what the thought process was here. What are we benefiting from this? I really can't answer that. And you spoke a little bit about, across the board, these things being a part of our everyday life. Another thing that we came across this week at the Progress channel here is this Congressman, Greg Murphy of North Carolina, his response to the Air Force being issued a policy update of using pronouns in their email signatures. This congressman responded, "Unbelievable," end quote. And he feels that the progressive left has infiltrated our military. The question is, should we be worried about military preparedness rather than pronouns? That was the question, proposed. But it is a part of our everyday life. And if we have, and a big win for us, we did have the don't ask, don't tell policy be dropped. So that's one big step. But now, with the Air Force and the gender identity being recognized in this policy update, it is a part of our everyday life. Is that something that we need to be concerned with?
I mean, so I have a family history of folks who are service members. My grandfather's in the Navy. I currently have an uncle in the Navy and an uncle in the Army. And one of the things that is like consistent in conversations with them is that camaraderie and companionship and are just really like key important things when you're on a mission that requires absolute trust. And part of it's so interesting that this congressperson talks about wanting military readiness, as if somehow like your personal identity and how you feel as a person is completely disconnected from military readiness. Right. Like if you are stressed about people misgendering you or not being able to express your pronouns, that are your pronouns, that causes a lot. It's just proof. It's like documented to cause such an incredible amount of anguish. And do you really want somebody who's going through mental anguish on a daily basis, not just from their own personal struggle, but also the like external the culture of the military branch or unit that they're in actively harming them too? Like, do you really want them being, do you really think that they're capable of being ready for a mission?
It adds an extra layer of mental preparedness to put yourself in a state where you are sacrificing literally your most precious thing. You're sacrificing your life to be put in a place where you have to be misgendered or respond to something that you don't feel connected to. And I think I think at the very least it's representative of a service person's state of mind. And are we not trying to better their state of mind so that they can be a better service person?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, I think you bring up a really great point, Taylor, about Don't Ask, Don't Tell being repealed. And, that felt like, a policy that was really targeted towards, cis gay men and women. And
Absolutely.
I think it's just important that the same way that we showed up and organized for cis gay men and women, like we are just seeing, this whole conversation tonight has been wave after wave of attacks on gender diverse people, transgender and gender diverse people. How long ago were we talking about Trump, who was, trying to ban transgender service members from serving in the military? It's just wave after wave of attack, and I want us to show up and organize and fight for our gender diverse community members the same way that we fought for gay men and women in the past.
Absolutely. And another thing that stood out to me also this week, on that topic, is we just had MLK Day. Happy birthday, MLK. Although Martin Luther King's birthday was on Sunday, it was on Saturday. We celebrated the holiday on Monday because thank God I had the day off. So happy. But on Martin Luther King Day, we had Congresswoman Joyce from Ohio come on and represent the Luther King family and the Luther King family. I like the way that sounds. Represented the King family and spoke about this movement that they're putting forward, which is no, hold on, let me get it right. No celebration without legislation. And I was floored, let me tell you. That is the most amazing thing that I've heard in the past in 2022, I'll say. And I just was really proud to see brown women of color speaking so authoritatively, speaking so with such knowledge on MLK Day, with such honor and pride, and to bring forth such a powerful movement. No celebration without legislation. The family is not even celebrating because they feel that voting rights and human rights is more important than celebrating their ancestors at this point. That, for me, is extremely powerful. And if you did you get a chance to hear any of those representatives while they were speaking?
I haven't yet.
You have to see that. These representatives, these women, and it was 4 women, in which one of those women were not brown. That 4th woman, I believe, was Nancy Pelosi. Say what you will about Miss Nancy, but she was there. She showed up, and she was there. I'll just leave it at that. But it is something that you need to see, if you ask me. I think it really solidified this movement that they're trying to create. It really forwarded the movement of human rights in general, if you ask me. And it was powerful. I got chills listening to them speak, and that hasn't happened in a while.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought that to my attention, because I'm going to watch that as soon as we're done. Can I make a shameless plug about legislation?
Yes.
Speaking of, so no celebration without legislation. I just want to remind any folks that live in Providence that the American Rescue Plan Act dollars, $128 million of COVID relief money, has been put forth before the city council. And I just want to say that there are programs in there that directly address reparations in that funding, but every single one of those dollars is intended to focus on making sure that we have a racially equitable recovery. So when we talk about legislation, there's $128 million at the city of Providence level that needs to go through the city council. So just keep your eye on that. Keep focused on that legislation, because there's really great programs. If you go to pvdrescueplan.com, it will sort of outline how that ordinance is going to be spent. But just really important.
Thank you for that.
Actionable things at the local level.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The homelessness strike that our producer here at the Progress Channel participated in at the Capitol, at the State House. It really drew my attention to that movement as well. And I believe it was $1.13 billion of unused money that is supposed to go towards homelessness. These are the things that we should be aware of. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. We're going to get ready to end our show. But right before that, we're going to have one more commercial, guys, and we'll be right back, I promise, with our final thoughts.
My name is Brian Sims, and I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. I think every day about the values that my Army officer parents instilled in me: to take responsibility, to show empathy, to have courage, and to be authentic. I want to put those values to the direct service of the Commonwealth. I have a lot of hope when I look at the people across the country that decided over these last number of years that they'd had enough, that they looked at a lack of leadership and thought that they could do better, because oftentimes they're right. We are the antidote to broken politics. My time in the Pennsylvania legislature has taught me a lot about not only how Pennsylvania government works, but a lot about how it doesn't. It's taught me a lot about how to work with people who don't always agree with me. I think it's time for me to take what I've learned in the House and to be able to bring that leadership to the direct service of the governor. I want to be your next lieutenant governor. We need adults in the room, and I want to bring bold, visionary leadership based on lived experiences and shared values to the Commonwealth.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I can't say it enough. Listen to us go on and on all night, but we're gonna give you back here the rest of your night. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you, Bret. Like I promised, we had a lot to talk about.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I actually, and being a little selfish here, I haven't seen Bret. As far as in real life, I haven't seen Bret in some time, and I miss you. So I just want that to be known right on air.
I miss you too. I miss you too.
Of course, yeah. And I really enjoyed this conversation. We had some things to talk about. We could talk about it all night. We can get into it because, geez, the state of the world, as we talked about before the show. Just a sigh. That's all you get for that. But I want to give you some time and space to leave the audience and the viewers with something, a pearl of wisdom, or maybe a shameless plug. What would you like to leave with us for your final thoughts today?
Thank you so much, Taylor, for having me on, and filling in for Dion, and thank you to Dion for having me on the show. First shameless plug is to order your at-home COVID test. So you get 4 free tests per household. So make sure you just Google free COVID test, and I got mine today, and the CDC said it would ship in 7 to 10 days. That's great. Make sure you get boosted or vaccinated if you aren't already boosted or vaccinated. And it's really such an honor. There's to just be on the show and be able to talk about the amazing work that's happening in the community here and elsewhere. Keep your eyes out for LGBTQ Action Rhode Island, which is pushing some really great state legislation that has been introduced. If you want to get involved at the state level, they're a great organization to plug into. Also just take care of yourself. I just got a new therapist a couple weeks ago, and it's been really great for my mental health. And I hope that everyone who is able to access mental health services does so, and don't be ashamed of that. That's really important. And stay hydrated, and that's
Oh yeah,
like just the basics, right? Stay hydrated.
oh yeah.
Really,
No, that's a
take care
big
of
one.
yourself.
That's a big one. One of my big things that I like to say, that I hope I'm quoted on when I leave this plane of existence, is hydrate, moisturize, mind your business. I hope to be quoted on that when I am no longer here. Take note, friends, family members, viewers. That is something that I say often, that I hope that really anchors into your spirit. But no, you speak on some really good things, and I again commend you on just being you, and thank you for giving us that. My final thoughts, I'm going to also do a shameless plug first. Make sure you catch Tea with Taylor. Surprise, surprise. You all knew it was coming. Make sure you catch Tea with Taylor on Fridays at 6 o'clock. I am also synonymously in my season 5 right now of my show, Tea with Taylor. We keep saying it. And this is the season of new friends, and I'm really happy to be welcoming in new people and to talking about new things, and having a little fun while we do it. And so make sure you catch that via YouTube and Facebook, 6 o'clock on Fridays. Secondly, I want to say, don't beat yourselves up. Like I like to say, the world will do it for you. Too many times we get down on ourselves, we beat ourselves up. Trust me when I say there will be so many outside forces trying to beat you down and trying to make you less than and trying to make you feel like you're less than. You are more than enough. And be good to yourself. Be good to yourselves. Look inward for your solutions rather than outward. And I am also really grateful to be able to be here, to have this platform, to be able to fill in for my good friend, Mr. Dion. And also grateful to whoever may be listening, Sometimes I feel like I'm talking into the wind, but for anything that may stick, I'm really glad to have been able to be the person that you heard it from. And I am so grateful again to have your ears and your heart. Thank you again for joining us tonight on the Progress Report, without Dion Sage. And that is it for us tonight. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope to see you again next Tuesday. And Dion will be back, God willing. So we'll see you then.